My sincere greetings to you over there, wherever you are, Australia, Nigeria, or Africa, and elsewhere. I recognize the various and varying times that we have as gifts from the Almighty, and therefore my greetings get to you in the same manner, so that if it is morning, so my greeting is. And of course, I'm not saying good morning, because that is not greeting at all. I can say good car, good shoes, good carpet, and then that is greeting. No, I can only say, how are you today? How has been your night or your morning or your day or whatever it is? You are the one to answer me back, because I'm greeting, and a greeter is somebody who inquires after the other. So if I'm inquiring after you, it simply means you answer me back and tell me, I am fine. Oh, the day has been bright and beautiful. And for some of us, we'll burst into singing by saying, this is the day that the Almighty has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Some can do that. So that is greeting. That is the response to my inquiring after you, because I have not seen you, you've not seen me, we're only communicating. So let us get some things right while we are talking. It is another privilege for me to share with you yet again on something that is vital, something that is essential, something that in creation, the Creator decided to make make that particular attribute an essential definition to everything. Everything you can think about. It is checked whether it is true or it is not true. Check it yourself. It is not true. No matter how attractive that particular thing is, you will not take it, you will not accept it. No matter how beautiful it is, you will not accept it. So, truth defines everything, and you are not exempted from that definition. That is why you are the epitome of a truth, of the truth that is in you. And once again, if we are 8 billion people in this world, every human being is differed by the nature of truth in him and her, because there are only 2 genders in the world, male and female only. If there are abnormal conditions, let us know them as abnormal conditions. But normalcy defines gender to be male and female only. So get that one right. Forget about what is going on in the socialist movements and everything like that. Forget about it. The truth is that you are either a male or you are a female. You can't go in between. And you can't leave this one and think you are the other one. And you cannot marry the opposite sex in the name that you are trans this or that or that or that. Forget about all these things. They don't make sense even to the most foolish person. They don't make sense at all. So let us not fall into that category. So having said this, I want to talk about the truth. I want to share with you about the truth. How I wish you are the one sharing with me about the truth. Well, I will keep waiting for you until such and such a time when you will turn to say, yes, my time has come for me to share with you about the truth. So while that one is being waited for, today I want to take us through Why should we believe in the Creator? Why should we believe in the Creator? There are two things that in the course of my trying to understand why the Almighty is reliable and why the climax of what is called the truth ends up there, I understood two things. And I'm ready to share with you from my screen here. Please just be there to accept it with me. This is found in the book of Hebrews chapter 6. And I will start reading from verse 13 till where I can stop. The Bible scholars have captioned it as the reliability of the Eternal One's promise, the Almighty's promise, the Creator's promise. While we are alive, and while we have deliberately chosen to live a righteous life and to please the Almighty, it is because we agree with the promise or promises that the Almighty has made. And that is why we want to see how reliable, want to get to know what makes the Almighty's statements reliable. Why do we hope to get eternal life? Why do I think that after this life, I will live forever? And is that my whole purpose? Is that what I really want? Or what exactly have I decided not to commit adultery, not to lie, not to steal, not to cheat, and so on and so forth? What am I really looking for? Don't forget, there are people who don't even believe in the Creator. And some of them don't lie. Some of them don't commit adultery. Some of them don't cheat. But then there is an overall bigger picture than that. When we don't do the right thing on our own, it is pride that is the reason. It is the fear of men that is the reason. But when we don't do the wrong thing because we are freed, then that is it. And there's only one person that can set us free. Anyone that will come to know the truth, to continue in knowing the truth, that person shall be free. For the scripture says, the scriptures say, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But when we do the right thing without this truth, we could be doing these right things out of coercion, compulsion, or even ignorance. Not to mention pride and other foolish things that usually invade us like flood. And so I want us to picture that one very well. Let us see why the Almighty is trustworthy, why we can rely on the Almighty for what the Almighty has said. And we will bring Abraham into this picture to give us what it is all about. And as I said, this reading is taken from Hebrews chapter 6. And so I will start with verse 13. When the Eternal One gave its promise, I put there in brackets, promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater by whom it could swear to, it swore by itself. Let us think about that. That is an oath. I'm sad to say that I have promised people many things and I failed. And truly, As bad as it is, there are promises I can make tomorrow and still fail them. And that is really dangerous. That is not good. Now, when I have made the promise, the person that I've made the promise to would want to confirm, are you really serious? Do you mean to do this to me? How do I confirm it? Usually, I take an oath. Some of us swear. I swear to the Almighty. I swear to my mother who is in the grave. I swear to my parents who are dead. I swear to that particular mountain, because we know that the mountain cannot be shaken or it cannot be moved. So we take an oath as a confirmation to what we have promised. So you can see that there is a promise and there is an oath. The promise is the statement to be accomplished. The oath is the practical way to prove that it will be done. So if you agree with this promise and oath coming together, mixing very well, that will yield to reliability of anything, then that was exactly what the Almighty did with Abraham. And so let us read down a little bit and get it. Its words were, I will assuredly bless thee and increase thy numbers. Well, Exodus chapter 12 is clear to us. Abraham was called out of his own domain, out of his own home, out of his comfort zone, and to go to a place that was unknown totally. That place could only be reached by daily guidance. You know what? If I want to travel to Nigeria, for example, it's easy. I'll just wake up, take my passport, check everything is in order, I enter the plane, and I'm off to Nigeria. What an easy thing, because I know my destination. In the case of Abraham, he had to rely on the Almighty's direction to get to the place that had been promised to him. If we call it Canaan, then which way would Abraham take to get to Canaan? Either early enough, or timely enough, or lately enough. Because some things had to be accomplished before Abraham would arrive at that particular place. So you can just understand why there was complete need for Abraham to depend on the Almighty based on having received the promise and having heard of the oath. Then what happened? I had to wait. So let us see. And so after patiently waiting, Abraham obtained the fulfillment of the Eternal One's promise. Well, you will agree with me to question the waiting of Abraham. Indeed, Abraham waited. Indeed, it was not the idea of in Abraham to have anything to do with Hagar. You will agree with me that I don't know what was going on in the heart of Abraham anyway, but of course, from time to time, Abraham has expressed his boots of doubt. I'm getting old. I'm now 100 years, and my wife is 90 years, doubling the period when women should be reproductive. So what are you talking about? So there were every reasons for this particular person to doubt what the Almighty has said. So when we use patience here, I think we tend to be a little bit clear. The Almighty does not count our errors after us, because the Almighty understands that we are dust, and out of dust we shall return. but then created with a purpose. And the purpose is when we have done exactly what the Almighty is, we go back in style as dust. And I like that one so much. So what happened? And so when Abraham had waited patiently, Isaac was born. The promise was fulfilled. And that is interesting. And that is the joy of it. Men, of course, swear by what is greater than themselves. And with them, an oath is accepted as putting a matter beyond all disputes. It is only in these days that oaths no longer hold water. But when times were times, in the originality of settings, I want to tell you, don't swear. Because by you swearing, by you taking an oath, you are affirming that that thing must be observed by you. It must be observed by you. And of course, it has spilled over to marriage and other forms of contract. Sometimes without understanding what these oaths are. No wonder, even in the church, we'll see a wife, an intending couple taking oath. I will do this in pains, in sickness, in this and that and that and that. But don't be surprised. By the time they are together, because the ground is not favorable for them to really keep to the oath that they had promised or promised and now confirm, but trying to confirm it by oath, things don't go that way. And that is why sometimes I caution this. Don't give marriage certificates at the beginning. Give marriage certificates at the end of the business. And when will it be? Maybe at the death of one of the spouses. Then you can give certificate. You can give it to the man if he is the one that's still alive, or you can give it to the woman if she is still alive. That is when certificate should be given, and not at the start of the marriage. Because many things come into play as soon as marriage begins. And because of the misconception, misunderstanding, misword, and all the false promises and so on and so forth, and all the foolishness that were all essential part of preparing for the marriage, and all the ignorance that were all there and then. And what can we say? More and more. Because all those things were there. They were the things that people were unaware of. And they took an oath. And when they took an oath, they came and found out that that oath could not be given. Therefore, when it comes to human agreements, keep oath at bay. Keep it at a distance. Keep it at a distance. Be careful when we are taking oaths, because I can be alive now and I'm promising you a house, only for me to die the following day, before the following day that I will give you the house. What will you do? I never kept it. So I just want us to understand this. So this is what we can learn from the Almighty. So when you take an oath, when we take an oath, we are actually clearing all doubts that that thing must be done. But thou, man, a vapor, who are you? Unless we say, if the Almighty wills, I will give you the house tomorrow. That is a wise way to do it. If the Almighty wills, I will remain your husband. If the Almighty wills, I will remain your wife. And anybody who will say, as the Almighty wills, the person is ready to be committed to what the Almighty demands in that situation. For instance, if it is marriage, you must live up to expectation. What are the exact demands in marriage? You must live up to that. I'm not deviating. I'm still talking about the reliability of the promise of the Almighty. And we're seeing the stages clearly that the Almighty had promised Abraham a child of promise. And of course, the promise came. But while this promise was still pending, the Almighty took an oath. And because the Almighty took an oath, and because there was no one higher than the Almighty swore to its own self and said, by myself, I am swearing to myself by myself that I will do that to you. And Abraham got it. And therefore, the Eternal One in verse 17, in his desire to show with unmistakable plainness to those who were to enter on the enjoyment of what it had promised, the unchangeableness of its purpose, bound itself with an oath. So the promise is there and the oath was there. Two things. For it intended us to find great encouragement in these two unchangeable things, that if the Almighty has made a promise, the oath is there to back it up. If the Almighty has promised that we will live forever and ever and in its own presence, then there must be something to back it up. Let us see what happens. Which make it impossible for the Eternal One to lie. This is what I'm saying. Most of the times, we are quick to say, for there is nothing impossible with God. I don't think we do understand that. I don't think we do understand it. For those who say there is nothing impossible with God, what exactly do we have in mind? Are we thinking about the positive nature of the Almighty? Or are we thinking about everything? But here is another word, that is another way of looking at this impossibility. For it is impossible for the Almighty to lie. So it means that the Almighty has set a boundary to itself. And that boundary is, I cannot lie. I cannot lie. Whatever I say, it must be true. It must be the truth. My promise is true because I am the truth. My oath is true because I am the truth. And whenever I promise and take an oath, I guarantee that thing will be accomplished. Dead or alive, that thing must be accomplished. And it happened. The Almighty cannot lie. That is why those who are associating with this person must also practice the nature, the character of this person. We don't have any choice. If we will really want to align with the Eternal One, we don't have any choice. The choice that we have left is practice its character. And that character is, it is impossible for this person to lie. In other words, the person remains in the truth, abides in the truth, talks everything in the truth, walks in the truth, thinks in the truth, moves in the truth, reacts in the truth, behaves in the truth, dresses in the truth, and displays everything in the truth. Because it is impossible for this person to lie. The difference between the Eternal One and me is that I am prone to lies. A pair of shoes can change me. A pair of cap can change me. When I have money, it can influence me. When I don't have, it can influence me. When people abuse me, it can affect me. And therefore, it changes so many things in me. This is a reality, my dear. But one person cannot change in season and out of season. And that is the person that is reliable. And we can trust that particular person. Not human beings. Not religion. The landscape of religions in these days is horrible. Little to nothing is seen in religious practices today. No wonder. Let me take the church, for instance. I'm afraid. We keep saying the body of Christ is not the number of people that we see. But how? Why is it not so? Because there are liars there who don't want to align with the nature and character of the Almighty. And not that they have not received teachings and so on and so forth like that. But they've gone into witchcraft. And by my definition of witchcraft, and as I understand it, you can't correct them. You just cannot correct them. They don't even have the ear to listen to you. They don't have the eyes to see anything. According to them, they have made themselves perfect. So that is witchcraft. So I want us to think about this thing very well. It is impossible for the Almighty to lie. And because of this, we can rely on Him, on it. We can rely on this one that does not lie. Now let's just read a little bit further. Now the author is right saying something, who fled for safety, where the mighty might lay, and where we might lay hold on the hope that hope set before us. This hope is a very anchor of our souls, secure and strong, and it reaches into the sanctuary that lies behind the curtain. Well, we remember the day that the Messiah was dead, and we heard about the tearing of the curtain in the temple. Well, whatever happened then, that is how the record is. But what I am going to tell us is that if we look at it in verse 20, where Yeshua, our Forerunner, has entered on our behalf after being made for all time a high priest of the order of Melchizedek. Don't forget, Melchizedek was an earthly person. He was not even a Hebrew. In fact, the history has it clearly that he was an Assyrian priest who had regard for the Almighty. And so this man really lived well. And of course, they crossed paths with Abraham. Let's not forget that one. They crossed paths. So let us just stop there and continue. So what am I trying to say or trying to understand from this that I feel I can share with you? The Almighty in our time has promised us far better places, far better things, things than the promised land of Canaan and its cohorts, where there's no bloodshed for you to conquer. And if it has to do with eternity, I don't know how it looks like, but one thing is clear. We don't know what we will become, but we'll become like this particular person, like our Savior. So while it remains a true abstract as to what exactly will become, the situation now is it is there. Because the person who has promised that that thing is there is reliable. And to confirm it, it took an oath. And the oath in our own time is revealed in Yeshua. The story, this is the beginning of the story. And I am happy. I'm part of the story today. On the 17th of May, 1978, between the hours of 10:30 and 11 a.m., when one brother Solomon Oke had preached during our FCS Sunday morning worship, I was touched. Of course, he has preached against hell, about hell, and who qualified to go to hell. And I was frankly afraid. But don't forget, that was in 1978. In 1973, I had been a Sunday school teacher. So I thought I knew, but actually I didn't. Until this day, I was broken down. And so what drove me to begin to appreciate the promises of the Almighty was the fear of hell. I didn't want to go to hell. But today, I've outgrown that fear. I no longer serve the Almighty based on even its promises and whatever. I serve the Almighty because I now have a living relationship. I have a living relationship that even when everything is given way, this living relationship keeps me going. And I'm no longer bothered whether it is heaven or wherever the Almighty will be. I am comfortable with that particular place. I'm just too comfortable to be where the Almighty will be, or where the Almighty will place me. That keeps me going. I'm glad I've grown to this stage, because over the years I kept learning. Oh, my relationship with the Almighty is no longer fear of this, fear of that, fear of no. It's a daily trust in the Almighty, because this person has proved to me its reliability. I can trust you. My dear brethren, I'll stop this one here, and then we will continue round it up. So what have I been sharing? I've just been trying to say the Almighty can be trusted. And the Almighty can be trusted because there's no lie in this person. The day you discover a trace of lie in the Almighty, discard it. Discard that belief. Throw it away. In my few years of sojourn in this world, despite my constant falling, then I will arise. Despite my confusions, despite my weaknesses, there were times I was blind to so many things. There were times I was so foolish, and I've not even given up the foolish words, foolish thoughts, and so on and so forth. I'm still striving with them. But my goal is that the truth will take the upper part of me. What about you, my dear? That is what I'm sharing. Minus the denominator. All our sacrifices are worthless. All our thoughts are worthless. All our actions, no matter how they are worthless. Yes, even if we will become a blessing to the world, if we are not a blessing to the world based on truth, nothing will come out of it. Remember, on that day, even among the people who go to church and have big ministries, big this, big that, and big that, and cast out demons, the Messiah will say, I never knew you. Of course, you prophesied. Of course, you healed the sick. Of course, you probably raised the dead according to the method that you did. But one thing will stand out, you were not in my book, because your denominator was not the truth. I'm afraid to say that there are many ministries in the world today, many churches, many denominations, many man-made things that the denomination is not the truth. What about you? I want you to make the truth be the denominator of why you talk, why you keep quiet, why you dress, why you walk, why you work. I want the denominator to be the truth, not your own truth. Surrender your truth to the truth, and we can see the changes. I know you are ready to urge me in that manner, so accept my urges. Thank you so much. Feel free to share this with anybody. I want to hear from you. I want to even be corrected by you. Remember, I'm growing. Remember, I've not yet come out of my foolishness as expected, ignorance as expected, weakness as expected. So I need encouragement from you. Call me and share with me whatever you have. Remain blessed. Bye.